Commander Taman Park stood at the massive viewing window of Concordia Prime, watching ships from dozens of different worlds dock at the neutral station. Some vessels looked like living coral, others like giant metal flowers. A few seemed to be made of pure crystal that caught the light of nearby stars. After 3 years as humanity's representative to the Galactic Harmony Pact, he still found the sight amazing. But today felt different. Today felt dangerous. "Commander Park," called a voice behind him. Taemin turned to see his aide, Lieutenant Hai-Young Lee, approaching with a worried look on her face. "The council session is about to begin. They moved it up by 2 hours. That was not a good sign. In 3 centuries of peace, the Pact Council never changed schedules without serious reasons." Taemin adjusted his formal blue uniform and followed Lieutenant Lee through the curved corridors of the station. The council chamber was enormous, with seats arranged in circles around a central speaking area. Representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in groups based on their species. The Villani hegemony took up one entire section with their tall, gray-skinned delegates. The crystal-like Netheks sparkled in their specially cooled seats. The fish-like Shorim floated in water-filled tanks that served as chairs. Humanity had only 12 seats in the far corner. 50 years in space was nothing compared to the thousands of years other species had been traveling among the stars. Taemin took his place just as the session began. Pact Counselor Yol Seth of the Villani rose from his seat. His voice carried clearly through the chamber's translation system. "Fellow members of the Harmony Pact," Yol Seth began, "we face a serious threat to galactic peace. Evidence has come to light that one member species has been conducting illegal weapons research." A cold feeling settled in Tai Min's stomach. He had a bad feeling about where this was going. The species known as humanity, Yol Seth continued, has been developing weapons of mass destruction on their colony worlds. These weapons violate 17 different Pact treaties and threaten the safety of all civilized beings. The chamber filled with shocked whispers and concerned chirping. Sounds from various species. Taemin stood up quickly. "I request permission to respond to these accusations," he said. Yol Seth looked at him with what might have been a smile on his alien features. "Of course, Commander Park. Please tell us about your weapons programs." "There are no weapons programs," Taemin said firmly. "Humanity follows all Pact agreements. We would never develop illegal weapons." "Perhaps you simply do not know," suggested Counselor Nethrin of the crystal-like Nethek. Her voice sounded like breaking glass. "Your species is still very young. Maybe your military leaders do not tell you everything. That stung because it had some truth to it. Earth's government did keep some secrets from their diplomatic corps, but Taemin knew his people well enough to be certain they would not break such important laws." "I demand to see this evidence," Taemin said. Yol Seth gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed what looked like human ships and bases, with technical readouts that meant nothing to Taemin. The data could have been completely fake for all he knew. "These images were taken by our long-range sensors," Yol Seth explained. "They clearly show weapons development on your colonies of New Busan and Terra Nova." Taemin studied the display. Something about it felt wrong, but he could not prove it was fake. The Villani had much better technology than humans did. If they wanted to create false evidence, they certainly could. "Even if this were true," Taemin said carefully, "humanity deserves the chance to investigate these claims and respond properly." "Investigation takes time," said Counselor Vashtel of the telepathic Virek. "Time during which these weapons could be completed and used. The Harmony Pact has enjoyed 3 centuries of peace," added Yol Seth. "We will not allow Deathworlders to destroy what we have built." The word Deathworlders hit the chamber like a physical blow. It was not quite an insult, but it was not respectful either. Most species in the Pact came from gentle worlds with mild weather and peaceful animals. Earth was different. Earth was a world of storms and earthquakes, of predators and diseases, of ice ages and asteroid impacts. Humans had not just survived such a world, they had conquered it. That made other species nervous. Humanity has been a loyal member of the Pact for 50 years, Taman said, trying to keep his voice calm. We have never broken our agreements or threatened anyone. Your loyalty is not in question, Yolseth replied. Your nature is. You come from a world of violence and death. Such origins leave marks that cannot be erased. The chamber grew quiet. Everyone knew what was coming next. The council has discussed this matter, Yolseth continued. We offer humanity 2 choices. First, you may submit to complete disarmament. All human military vessels will be scrapped. All weapons factories will be destroyed. Pact observers will be stationed on every human world to ensure compliance. Taemin felt his heart sink. That would leave humanity completely helpless, dependent on the Pact for protection against pirates, hostile aliens, or natural disasters. What is the second choice? He asked, though he already knew. Immediate expulsion from the Pact, Yolseth said. All treaties will be void. All trade agreements will end. Human ships will be banned from Pact space. You will face the galaxy alone. The threat was clear. Without the Pact's protection and trade networks, humanity would struggle to survive. Their colonies were still developing. Their technology was centuries behind other species. Earth's total population was barely 2 billion spread across 12 worlds. I need time to consult with my government, Taemin said. No, Yolseth replied immediately. Deathworlders have already had too much time to corrupt galactic peace. You will decide now, before this council session ends. Taemin looked around. The chamber. Some delegates seemed uncomfortable with the ultimatum, but none spoke up in humanity's defense. They were all afraid of what humans might become if left unchecked. The minutes passed slowly as Taemin wrestled with an impossible choice. Accept slavery or face extinction. Submit to the Pact's control or stand alone against a hostile galaxy. He thought about his sister Hae-Jin, who managed a farming colony on New Busan. He thought about the children playing in Earth cities, unaware that their future was being decided in this distant chamber. He thought about all the humans who had worked and died to build their small place among the stars. Then he thought about his grandfather, who had fought in Earth's last great war before humanity reached for space. The old man had once told him, "Sometimes you have to choose between living on your knees or dying on your feet. Only you can decide which is really living." Taemin stood up slowly. The chamber fell silent. Humanity rejects both options, he said clearly. We withdraw from the Galactic Harmony Pact, effective immediately. The chamber erupted in shocked voices and alien sounds of surprise. Some delegates seemed pleased that the troublesome humans were finally gone. Others looked worried about what would happen next. Yolseth's expression was unreadable, but Taemin thought he saw satisfaction in the alien's eyes. Perhaps this had been the plan all along. So be it, Yolseth declared. Let it be recorded that humanity has chosen to leave civilized society. The consequences of this decision rest entirely on their own heads. As Taemin walked out of the chamber, he wondered if he had just saved his species or doomed them all. The journey back to Earth felt longer than usual. Taemin sat in his quarters aboard the diplomatic ship Soul's Pride, staring at reports that grew worse by the hour. Within 6 hours of humanity's withdrawal from the Pact, trade embargoes had begun. Pact vessels refused to dock at human stations. The few human ships in Pact space received orders to leave immediately or be seized. Captain Bo-Young Kim knocked on his door. "Commander, we're receiving messages from the colonies. They want to know what's happening." Taemin rubbed his tired eyes. He had been sending encrypted warnings to human settlements for the past day, telling them to prepare for the worst. But how do you prepare for war against enemies with technology centuries ahead of your own? Tell them to implement Defense Protocol 7, he said. All colonies should recall their merchant vessels and begin rationing supplies. Defense Protocol 7 had never been used before. It meant preparing for total isolation from galactic civilization. The Soul's pride dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. Even from this distance, Taemin could see the signs of preparation. Military ships moved between Earth and its orbital stations. Construction crews worked around the clock to install new weapons on civilian vessels. Earth's blue surface looked peaceful and beautiful, but Taemin knew the planet was buzzing with activity. Every factory that could be converted to military production was already working. Every person with technical skills was being recruited for the defense effort. When they docked at Luna Station, President Da-Un Kim was waiting for him. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes, but she had led Earth through 50 years of careful diplomacy with alien species. "Walk with me," she said simply. They moved through the station's corridors toward the conference room where Earth's leadership was waiting. Through the large windows, they could see Earth hanging in space like a blue marble. "How bad is it?" President Kim asked quietly. "Bad," Taemin admitted. "The Pact Council was looking for an excuse to get rid of us. I think they've been planning this for years." "Our intelligence people agree," the president said. "We've been intercepting communications between Pact species for months. They're afraid of us." That surprised Taemin. "Afraid? We're barely 50 years into space travel. Our most advanced ships are converted cargo haulers." President Kim stopped walking and looked at him seriously. "That's exactly why they're afraid. We went from surface-bound to interstellar travel in less than a century. Most species took thousands of years to reach the same level, and we did it while fighting wars, surviving disasters, and dealing with a planet that tries to kill us every day." They entered the conference room, where Earth's military and political leaders were gathered around a large holographic display of the solar system. Admiral Woo Jin Lee looked up as they entered. "Commander Park," the admiral said with a respectful nod. "Thank you for giving us warning time. We've been able to recall most of our deep space vessels." "What's our situation?" Taemin asked. General Su-Young Kang activated the display. Red dots showed Pact naval bases within striking distance of human space. Blue dots showed human defensive positions. "We have 47 combat-capable ships," General Kang reported. "Most are converted civilian vessels with basic weapons. The Pact has over 3,000 ships in our region of space with full military technology." The numbers were depressing, but Dr. Min-Ho Choi spoke up from his seat at the table. "Numbers don't tell the whole story. I've been studying Pact military records for years. They haven't fought a real war in over 3 centuries. Their ships are designed for exploration and peacekeeping, not combat." "And our ships?" asked President Kim. "Designed by a species that spent 10,000 years fighting everything from wild animals to each other," Dr. Choi replied. "Every human ship has backup systems for the backup systems. Every weapon can be fired manually if the computers fail. We build things to survive because we come from a world where survival is never guaranteed." Admiral Jae-won Nam leaned forward. "I've been reviewing our tactical options. The Pact will probably send a peacekeeping force first. Maybe 200 ships to demand our surrender. They'll expect us to give up when we see how outnumbered we are." "Will we?" Taemin asked. The room grew quiet. These were the people who would decide humanity's fate in the coming days. President Kim spoke first. 50 years ago, we begged the Pact to let us join their civilization. We promised to follow their rules, adopt their values, and never cause trouble. We kept that promise, even when it meant accepting second-class status. She activated a new display showing human colonies. Each world was marked with population numbers and defensive capabilities. "New Busan has 8 million people," she continued. "Terra Nova has 12 million. All told, nearly 2 billion humans live on these worlds because we believed the Pact would protect us. And now? Asked General Kang. Now we protect ourselves, President Kim said firmly. We tried diplomacy. We tried following their rules. They repaid our loyalty with false accusations and impossible ultimatums. Admiral Lee nodded slowly. The men and women in our fleet signed up to defend humanity. They knew this day might come. Taemin thought about his sister Hyejin on New Busan. She had sent him a message just before the Soul's Pride reached Earth. You did what you had to do. Now we do what we do best. We survive. There's something else, Dr. Choi said quietly. Our intelligence network has been monitoring Pact communications since the Council session. Several species are having second thoughts about confronting us. What do you mean? Taemin asked. The Althan traders have been studying human military history. They're calling us the species that weaponized everything. The Kef explorers have calculated human population growth rates and are projecting that we'll outnumber them in 2 centuries. Dr. Choi pulled up another display showing intercepted alien communications. Most interesting is a message from Counselor Rayshan of the Shorim. She told her government that the Deathworlders might be exactly what the galaxy needs to break the Pact's stranglehold on progress. That was unexpected. Taemin had assumed all Pact species supported the ultimatum. So we might have allies? He asked. Secret ones, maybe, Dr. Choi replied. Species that joined the Pact for protection, but stayed because they were afraid to leave. If we can prove that the Pact can be defied successfully, then others might follow our example, Admiral Nam finished. President Kim stood up and walked to the window overlooking Earth. 50 years ago, we were alone in the universe. We thought finding other, intelligent life would end our isolation. Instead, we discovered that the galaxy already had rulers who saw us as a threat to their power. She turned back to face the room. Maybe being alone wasn't so bad after all. At least when we were alone, we were free. The meeting continued for hours as they planned Earth's defense. Military units were assigned to protect key installations. Evacuation plans were prepared for civilian populations. Emergency supplies were distributed to remote colonies. But underneath all the planning was a simple truth that everyone understood. Humanity was about to fight for its right to exist as a free species. The Pact expected them to surrender or be destroyed. They were about to learn that Deathworlders don't surrender easily. As Taemin left the meeting, he paused at the window to look at Earth one more time. Somewhere down there, his nephew was probably playing in a park, unaware that his world was about to change forever. We'll protect them, Admiral Lee said, joining him at the window. Whatever it costs, we'll protect them. Taemin nodded. I know we will. That's what humans do. In the distance, warning lights began flashing on the outer defense platforms. The Pact fleet would arrive soon. The alarm bells echoed through every human facility in the solar system. Admiral Woo-Jin Lee stood in Earth's primary command center, watching the massive display screen as 200 alien ships materialized at the edge of human space. Fleet composition? He asked his tactical officer. 60 Villani heavy cruisers, 40 Nethek crystal ships, 30 Shorim aquatic vessels, and 70 mixed ships from other Pact species, Lieutenant Kyung-Ho Park reported. They're broadcasting surrender demands on all frequencies. Admiral, Lee studied the enemy formation. The Pact ships arranged themselves in perfect geometric patterns, like a parade formation. Beautiful to look at, but not designed for actual combat. They're treating this like a police action, he murmured. They expect us to give up when we see how outnumbered we are. On Earth's orbital stations, human families watched the news broadcasts with growing fear. The alien fleet looked enormous compared to humanity's small defensive force. Many people began packing essential belongings, preparing for the worst, but in the military command centers, a different mood prevailed. These were the descendants of people who had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and countless natural disasters. They had been pushed around by the Pact for 50 years, treated like dangerous children who needed constant supervision. Today, that ended. Fleet Commander Keth Moore of the Volani transmitted his surrender demand directly to Earth's government. His translated voice carried the tone of someone addressing misbehaving students. "People of Earth," the message began, "you have chosen to leave civilized society and threaten galactic peace. However, the Harmony Pact is merciful. Surrender immediately, accept complete disarmament, and no harm will come to your civilians." President Kim's response was broadcast on all human channels. "The people of Earth reject your ultimatum. Withdraw from our space immediately." Kethmore seemed genuinely surprised by the refusal. In 3 centuries of Pact expansion, no species had ever chosen to fight rather than submit. "Very well," he transmitted back. "You have forced us to use violence. The consequences are your responsibility." The Pact fleet began moving toward Earth's orbital defense platforms. Their ships glowed with energy shields that shimmered like soap bubbles around each vessel. Weapons that could crack planets began charging for the first strike. Captain Dong Han Yoon commanded the human destroyer Incheon, one of 47 ships forming humanity's entire space navy. His vessel had been a cargo hauler 6 months ago, hastily converted with military-grade particle beams and missile launchers. "Sir," his weapons officer called out, "the lead Pact ship is targeting Luna Station. 8 million civilians." Captain Yoon didn't hesitate. "All weapons fire!" The Incheon's particle beam lanced out across space, striking the Nethek cruiser's energy shield. The alien technology should have absorbed the attack easily. Instead, the shield flickered and failed, and the beam punched through the crystal, hull like it was made of glass. The Nethek ship exploded in a shower of sparkling fragments. For a moment, both fleets seemed frozen in shock. The Pact had not lost a military vessel in over a century. They had not expected primitive human weapons to penetrate their advanced defenses. But Captain Yoon's unauthorized attack had accomplished something more important than destroying one enemy ship. It had proven that the Pact could bleed. "All ships," Admiral Lee broadcast to the human fleet, "engage at will." What followed was unlike any battle in galactic history. The Pact ships continued to maintain their perfect formations, firing in coordinated volleys and following 3 centuries of peaceful exploration protocols. They fought like a police force dealing with criminals, professional, restrained, and confident in their technological superiority. The human ships fought like their ancestors had fought saber-toothed tigers and enemy armies. They ignored tactical formations, used suicide runs and ramming attacks, and showed a ferocity that terrified crews who had never seen real violence. The converted freighter Busan's Hope, commanded by Captain Young-Soo Nam, lost its main engines to Volani fire. Instead of retreating, Captain Nam used the ship's remaining thrusters to ram directly into the enemy cruiser's bridge section. Both ships were destroyed, but the psychological impact on the Pact fleet was enormous. Human fighters, little more than atmospheric aircraft with space engines, swarmed around massive Pact battleships like angry wasps. They couldn't penetrate the heavy armor, but they could target sensor arrays, weapon ports, and other vulnerable systems. "These humans fight like wild animals," Fleet Commander Keth Moore reported to his tactical staff. "They have no regard for proper military conduct." "Sir," his aide replied nervously, "we're losing ships faster than projected. Human weapons seem more effective than our intelligence suggested." That was humanity's first advantage. They had been underestimated. Pact scientists had studied human technology and found it primitive by their standards. What they had failed to understand was that human weapons were designed for war, not exploration. Every human particle beam was built to punch through armor. Every missile was designed to kill, not disable. Every ship system had backup power and manual controls because humans expected their equipment to be damaged in battle. The Pact ships, designed for 3 centuries of peace, began to falter as their crews realized they were in an actual war. Admiral Lee coordinated the defense from his flagship Sejong the Great, a dreadnought converted from a colony transport ship. Around him, his staff tracked the battle with the calm efficiency of people who had prepared for this moment their entire careers. "Enemy formation is breaking up," reported Commander Ji-Wan Choi. "They're taking casualties they never expected." "Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons," Admiral Lee observed, "but not kinetic impacts. Order all ships to use ramming speed when necessary." The human fleet began using tactics that horrified the Pact observers. Damaged ships deliberately crashed into enemy vessels. Fighters made suicide runs against vital systems. Even civilian shuttles were armed with explosives and sent against Pact supply ships. But the most shocking moment came when Fleet Commander Keth Moore ordered his flagship Harmony's Edge to begin bombardment of Earth's surface. The ship's planet-killer weapons began charging for a strike that would turn entire cities into radioactive craters. Captain Yonseo Han of the Sejong the Great saw what was happening and made a decision that would be remembered for centuries. She ordered her ship to ramming speed, aiming directly at the Pact flagship's weapon arrays. "Captain," her executive officer protested, "we'll be destroyed on impact." "Then we'll die protecting our home," Captain Han replied calmly. "All hands, brace for impact." The Sejong the Great struck the Harmony's Edge at nearly 10% of light speed. The collision destroyed both ships instantly, along with 40,000 crew members from both sides. But Captain Han's sacrifice saved millions of lives on Earth and broke the Pact fleet's formation. The remaining Pact ships, their formation shattered and their commander dead, began to retreat. They had expected an easy police action against primitive rebels. Instead, they had encountered an enemy that fought with a desperation and violence they could not comprehend. "Enemy fleet is withdrawing," reported Lieutenant Park. "We're reading massive damage to their remaining ships." Admiral Lee looked at the tactical display. Humanity had lost 23 ships and over 50,000 personnel, but they had destroyed or disabled over 120 Pact vessels. More importantly, they had proven that the Galactic Harmony Pact could be defeated. "Send a message to all human colonies," Admiral Lee ordered. "The Sol system remains in human hands. We have bloodied the Pact's nose, but this is just the beginning." On Earth, people watched the news reports with a mixture of grief and pride. They mourned Captain Han and the other heroes who had died defending their world. But they also felt something they had not experienced in 50 years of Pact membership: the knowledge that they were truly free. The Pact Council would not let this defeat stand unanswered. Larger fleets would come, with newer weapons and stricter orders. Humanity had won the first battle, but the war was just beginning. In command centers across human space, military leaders began planning for the next phase of the conflict. They had proven that Deathworlders could fight. Now they had to prove they could win. News of humanity's victory at the Battle of Sol spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On distant worlds, alien populations watched in shock as reports described how primitive Deathworlders had defeated a Pact peacekeeping fleet. Supreme. Arbiter Velthon of the Virek called an emergency session of the Pact Council. The tall telepathic alien's mental voice carried waves of barely controlled rage as he addressed the assembled representatives. "The Deathworlder contamination has spread beyond our worst projections," he declared. "They have proven that Pact authority can be challenged. If we do not respond with overwhelming force, other species may follow their example." Counselor Yol-Seth of the Vellani, his pride wounded by the destruction of their fleet, supported immediate escalation. "I propose we authorize construction of the Stellar Purifier. One demonstration of its power will end this rebellion and remind the galaxy why the Pact must never be defied." The Stellar Purifier was a theoretical weapon capable of sterilizing entire star systems. It had been designed decades ago but never built, deemed too dangerous even by Pact standards. "Surely that is excessive," protested Counselor Nethrin of the Nethek. "The humans have fewer than 50 ships. A larger conventional fleet could defeat them." "No," Velthon replied coldly. Conventional tactics failed because we underestimated Deathworlder psychology. They do not surrender when faced with impossible odds. They fight harder. We need a weapon that removes their ability to fight entirely. The vote was close, but fear won over caution. Construction of the stellar purifier began immediately at the heavily defended Nexus Prime shipyard. Meanwhile, humanity was not waiting to be attacked again. In secret facilities across human space, Admiral Jaewon Nam planned what would become, known as the Ghost Fleet Campaign. "We can't win a conventional war," he explained to his staff officers. "But we don't need to. We just need to make the cost of fighting us higher than the Pact is willing to pay." Using captured navigation data from destroyed Pact ships, human strike forces began appearing without warning at enemy installations. The converted cruiser New Seoul, commanded by Captain Min Jung Kim, materialized in the Kepler system and destroyed 3 Pact shipyards before vanishing back into faster-than-light travel. The attack pattern was always the same: appear suddenly, destroy infrastructure, and escape before reinforcements arrived. Human ships avoided major fleet battles, instead targeting supply lines, construction facilities, and isolated outposts. Colonel Kyung-Soo Park led Special Forces teams in boarding actions against Pact vessels. His soldiers, trained for combat in Earth's hostile environments, proved capable of fighting in conditions other species found impossible. "The enemy ship has lost atmosphere in 6 compartments," Colonel Park reported during one raid. "Pact crew members are evacuating. We're securing their computer cores now." These boarding actions provided valuable intelligence about Pact technology and military plans. More importantly, they spread terror among enemy crews who had never faced opponents capable of fighting in vacuum or extreme temperatures. The psychological warfare was as important as the physical attacks. Pact species began to see humans as unstoppable monsters who could appear anywhere, destroy anything, and survive conditions that would kill normal beings. But humanity's greatest victory came from an unexpected source. Counselor Ray Shan of the Shorim secretly contacted Taemin Park, now serving as Earth's Minister of War. "Minister Park," her translated voice whispered through an encrypted communication channel. "There are those among us who believe the Pact has become what it once opposed, a tyrannical empire that rules through fear." The meeting took place on a neutral trading station in unclaimed space. Taemin arrived with minimal security, trusting that the fish-like alien representative genuinely wanted peace. "Your species has shown us something we had forgotten," Ray Shan explained, her large eyes reflecting sadness. "The possibility of saying no to those who claim to rule us." She revealed that many smaller Pact species had joined not for protection, but because they feared conquest. The Vallani, Nethek, and Virek had dominated galactic politics for centuries, using the Pact as a tool to maintain their power. "The Althan traders are already selling weapons to resistance groups on dozen worlds," Ray Shan continued. "The Kef explorers have begun refusing military transport duties. Even some Shorim colonies are declaring independence." This was the news Taemin had hoped for, but hardly dared expect. Humanity's rebellion was inspiring others to challenge Pact authority. "What can we do to help?" he asked. "Survive," Ray Shan replied simply. "Every day you remain free proves that. The Pact can be defied. Every victory you achieve weakens their claim to represent galactic civilization." The Secret Alliance began providing intelligence about Pact military movements and industrial capabilities. Most crucially, they warned humanity about the Stellar Purifier project. "The weapon is being built at Nexus Prime," Ray Shan reported, during their next meeting. "It can destroy an entire star system by destabilizing stellar fusion. They plan to use it on Earth as an example to other rebellious species." Admiral Nam studied the intelligence reports with growing concern. Nexus Prime was one of the most heavily defended installations in Pact space, protected by automated defense platforms and a permanent fleet of over 500 ships. It's a suicide mission, he told President Kim during a secure briefing. We'd need to commit our entire remaining fleet, and the chances of success are minimal. What are the chances of success if we do nothing? President Kim asked. The answer was obvious. If the stellar purifier became operational, humanity would face extinction. Every human world would be destroyed as a warning to other species considering rebellion. We'll need volunteers, Admiral Nam said quietly. This won't be a mission anyone comes back from. The response shocked even seasoned military leaders. When word spread through the human fleet that a desperate mission was being planned, every single ship volunteered. Civilian captains who had never fired a weapon in anger demanded to be included. Even merchant crews began arming their vessels with improvised weapons. Captain Sujin Lee of the destroyer Gwangju summed up the general feeling. My children live on Earth. If someone is building a weapon to kill them, then that someone needs to die first. The final assault fleet consisted of 156 ships carrying nearly every military-age human in space. It was not just a naval operation, it was humanity's entire future being wagered on one desperate gamble. Dr. Minho Choi, the xenobiologist who had first made contact with the Pact, volunteered to serve as scientific advisor for the mission. At 73 years old, he was probably the last person who should have been aboard a warship. You're too valuable to risk, Admiral Nam protested. I'm too old to matter, Dr. Choi replied with a smile. Besides, I helped get us into this mess by trusting the Pact in the first place. I should help get us out of it. As the human fleet prepared to depart for Nexus Prime, people across human space gathered to watch the launch. Children too young to understand the technical details knew that their parents and older siblings were leaving to fight monsters who wanted to hurt them. Taemin Park stood with President Kim on Luna Station's observation deck, watching the ships accelerate toward their faster-than-light jump points. Do you think they'll succeed? President Kim asked. They have to, Taemin replied. If they fail, there won't be anyone left to remember that we tried. The last ship to depart was Admiral Nam's flagship Indomitable Spirit, a massive dreadnought, built from the hull of a colony ship. As it vanished into hyperspace, communication arrays across human space began broadcasting a simple message to anyone who might be listening. We are humanity. We do not surrender. We do not submit. We fight for the right of all beings to be free. On 1,000 worlds, beings who had lived under Pact authority for centuries heard those words and wondered if freedom might be possible after all. The Nexus Prime system contained the largest military-industrial complex in Pact space. Massive shipyards orbited the system's gas giant, protected by automated defense platforms and a permanent fleet of 800 warships. At the center of it all, the half-completed stellar purifier hung in space like a metallic moon. Admiral Jae-won Nam stood on the bridge of his flagship Indomitable Spirit, watching the enemy installations grow larger on the tactical display. Around him, the human fleet spread out in attack formation, 156 ships carrying humanity's last hope. Enemy fleet is moving to intercept, reported Commander Dae-Young Park. They're deploying in standard defensive formation. Admiral, Nam studied the Pact deployment. Even after 2 years of war, they still fought like peacekeepers rather than soldiers. Their ships formed perfect geometric patterns, prioritizing protection over aggression. Signal all ships, he ordered. Begin the final assault. What followed was the largest space battle in galactic history. Over 2,000 ships clashed in the Nexus system, while the incomplete superweapon loomed over the battlefield, like a reminder of what was at stake. Captain Ji-Hoo Lim led Alpha Squadron in a direct attack on the stellar purifier's construction platform. His 12 fighters, converted civilian craft with military weapons, bolted on, weaved through defensive fire from automated gun turrets. Alpha leader to all fighters, he broadcast. Remember, we're not trying to destroy the whole thing, just the fusion initiator in the core. That's our target. The fighters dove toward the massive weapon, dodging energy beams that could vaporize them instantly. Captain Lim's ship took a direct hit that destroyed his engines, but he used his remaining momentum to crash directly into the weapon's central control system. The explosion sent shockwaves through the entire structure, but the stellar purifier remained intact. Meanwhile, Commander Yuri Kim found herself commanding the cruiser Daegu against 3 Pact dreadnoughts. Her ship was outgunned and outnumbered, but she had trained for situations exactly like this. "All power to forward weapons," she ordered. Ramming speed. The Daegu charged directly at the lead dreadnought, absorbing massive damage as it closed. The distance. At the last moment, Commander Kim fired every weapon her ship carried directly into the enemy's reactor core. Both ships were destroyed, but the explosion took out the other 2 dreadnoughts as well. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out as human crews made sacrifices that shocked their Pact opponents. The aliens had superior technology and greater numbers, but they had never faced an enemy that treated death as an acceptable price for victory. Fleet Commander Keth Moore, promoted after the previous commander's death at Sol, watched the battle from his flagship with growing desperation. The humans were taking enormous casualties, but they were also destroying Pact ships at an impossible rate. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the Deathworlders are ignoring our surrender signals. They're fighting to complete destruction." "Then, we give them destruction," Keth Moore replied grimly. "Activate the stellar purifier. If we cannot defeat them conventionally, we will demonstrate the price of defying the Pact." Dr. Minho Choi, monitoring enemy communications from his position aboard Admiral Nam's flagship, picked up the activation signal. The 73-year-old scientist had spent his life studying alien technology, and he understood immediately what was happening. "Admiral," he called out urgently. "They're trying to fire the weapon early. It's not complete, but they think they can create a localized stellar disruption that will destroy our fleet." Admiral Nam looked at the tactical display. The human fleet was scattered throughout the system, unable to retreat quickly enough to escape the weapon's effect. They had perhaps minutes before the stellar purifier fired. "Can we stop it?" he asked. Dr. Choi studied his readings carefully. "The weapon uses controlled fusion to create a chain reaction in stellar matter. If we could disrupt the fusion process at the right moment, what would that require? A massive energy discharge directly into the weapon's core during the firing sequence. It would have to be perfectly timed, and the ship delivering the discharge would be destroyed." Admiral Nam nodded slowly. He had known from the beginning that this mission would require ultimate sacrifices. "All ships." "This is Admiral Nam," he broadcast to the human fleet. "The enemy is attempting to activate their superweapon. The indomitable spirit will make a final run to stop them. Continue the attack until we succeed or die trying." The massive dreadnought turned toward the stellar purifier, accelerating to maximum speed. Around it, the battle continued as human. Ships pressed their attacks despite overwhelming odds. Captain Hyojin Song of the destroyer Ulsan saw what the admiral was attempting and made his own decision. "All ships of Beta Squadron form up on the flagship. We're going to punch a hole through their defenses." 12 human warships formed a spearhead formation and charged directly at the weapon platform. Pact defenders concentrated their fire on the approaching ships, destroying most of them before they could reach their target. But the sacrifice created the opening Admiral Nam needed. The indomitable spirit broke through the defensive perimeter just as the stellar purifier began its firing sequence. "All hands, brace for impact," Admiral Nam announced calmly. "It has been an honor serving with you all." The dreadnought struck the weapon's core at the exact moment the fusion process began. The collision should have created a controlled stellar disruption that would sterilize the entire system. Instead, the incomplete weapon's fusion process went wildly out of control. The explosion tore apart the Nexus Prime star itself, creating a massive subspace rift that made faster-than-light travel impossible in dozens of nearby systems. The blast destroyed both fleets, along with the entire Nexus system. But it also eliminated the Pact's ultimate weapon and made it impossible for them to reinforce their remaining forces in the region. News of the mutual destruction reached Earth 3 days later. President Kim stood before a joint session of the Colonial Council to address humanity's remaining leaders. "We have lost Admiral Nam and 60,000 of our finest people," she announced, "but their sacrifice has broken the Pact's ability to continue this war. We have reports that member species throughout the galaxy are declaring independence." The reports were true. Supreme Arbiter Velthon had requested an emergency ceasefire through Counselor Ray Shan of the Shorim. The Pact's military was in chaos. Their ultimate weapon was destroyed, and rebellion was spreading to dozens of worlds. Taemin Park, now wearing the scars of 2 years of war, met with Pact representatives aboard a neutral space station. But this time, humanity negotiated from a position of strength. "The Galactic Harmony Pact is finished," he told Velthon bluntly. "Your member species are abandoning you. Your fleets are scattered. Your authority is broken." "What do you propose?" Velthon asked, his telepathic voice carrying defeat. "A new beginning," Taemin replied. "The Stellar Commonwealth, a voluntary association where no species rules over others. Membership is optional. Members retain the right to withdraw at any time, and conflicts are resolved through negotiation, not ultimatums." The Treaty of New Sol was signed 6 months later. The Commonwealth began with humanity and 17 former Pact species, but grew rapidly as word spread of the new alliance's principles. 5 years after the war's end, President Taemin Park addressed the First Commonwealth Assembly. Representatives from 400 star systems and 23 species listened as he spoke. "We didn't fight to destroy peace," he said. "We fought to build a peace worth having, one where strength serves justice, not the other way around, where being different is not a crime, where even the smallest species has a voice in its own destiny." The Commonwealth thrived because it was built on the lessons humanity had learned on their death world, that survival requires cooperation, that freedom must be earned, and that sometimes the only way to achieve peace is to be willing to fight for it. On Earth, Admiral Lee visited the memorial wall that bore the names of 180,000 humans who had died in the war. He placed a small stone at its base, an old Korean tradition, and whispered the words that had become humanity's unofficial motto. "You didn't die for nothing. The galaxy is free." Above him, ships from dozens of different worlds moved peacefully through Earth's orbital space. The Deathworlders, who had once begged for acceptance, now led a galaxy transformed by their courage. The Pact had tried to make humanity choose between slavery and extinction. Instead, humanity had chosen a third option: freedom for everyone. And in making that choice, they had changed the galaxy forever.